Welcome to Storyverse, where stories speak and you learn English naturally. Chapter 1. The Vanished Smile. It was early morning, Monday, August 21st, 1911. The Louvre Museum in Paris still echoed with the quiet sounds of footsteps and whispers of cleaning cloths against marble floors. Sunlight slipped gently through the tall windows, touching the grand halls where art slept behind glass and gold. In one corner of the Salon Carré, 3 cleaners paused their work. Before them hung a small painting, calm, beautiful, and mysterious, the Mona Lisa. Her smile seemed to follow them, soft and secretive, as if she knew something the world did not. "This is the most valuable picture in the world," one of the men said quietly. "They say it's worth 1.5 million francs. For a moment, all 3 stared at her, lost in the charm of that painted face, then laughed softly and walked on, their brooms clicking against the floor. To them, she was just another painting among thousands. But by the time they returned, the world's most famous smile would be gone. Hours passed. Visitors came and went, the great museum breathing with its usual calm rhythm. No one noticed that the small space on the wall where Mona Lisa had hung was now empty. At 8:35, one of the cleaners walked by again and froze. "The painting, it's gone," he said, half laughing. "They must have taken it away, afraid we'd steal it." The others chuckled and returned to work. No one suspected the truth. Paintings were often removed for cleaning or photography. It was ordinary, nothing to worry about. The day drifted by like any other, the halls silent, the walls unknowingly wounded. The next morning, at 7:20, a guard named Poin walked through the Salon Carré. He stopped, blinking at the blank space on the wall. He, too, assumed it had been taken for photographs. At 9 o'clock, a painter named Louis Béroux arrived. He was working on a painting of the very same gallery. "Where is the Mona Lisa?" he asked the guard. "It's being photographed," Poin replied. Béroux frowned. "Photographed? Again?" He waited all morning, his canvas untouched, the empty space in front of him whispering something strange. By noon, he could no longer ignore it. He sent Poin to check with the museum's photographer. Minutes later, the guard returned, his face pale. "They don't have it," he said. "They don't know anything about it." The room fell silent. Every sound seemed to vanish. Even the air stood still. Béroux ran to find his superior. Within hours, the Louvre was in turmoil. At 3 in the afternoon, visitors were quietly asked to leave. "The museum is closing," the guards announced. No one was told why. That night, the great building stood empty, dark, echoing, and full of questions. It wasn't until the next morning, when the newspapers hit the streets, that Paris woke to the shocking truth. Someone had stolen the Mona Lisa. The unthinkable had happened. The smile that had captivated kings, poets, and painters for centuries was gone. The Louvre closed its doors for a week as police swarmed through every gallery, searching every room, every hidden corner. They took fingerprints, questioned guards, examined staircases, and dusted empty frames for clues. And in the quiet hours of the night, one question haunted them all. How could the world's greatest treasure simply vanish? The Mona Lisa had disappeared, and the legend of the stolen masterpiece had just begun. Chapter 2. The Man in the Shadows. The sun rose over Paris, but inside the Louvre a heavy silence lingered. The painting was gone, and no one could explain how. Detectives swarmed the museum, their footsteps echoing through the long marble halls. Every doorway, every corner, every locked room was examined. Then at the bottom of a narrow back staircase, they found it, the empty frame of the Mona Lisa. The glass was broken, and on it, a single thumbprint, the only trace left behind by the man who had stolen the world's most famous smile. Investigators began piecing together the thief's path. He had entered the museum on Sunday, August 20th, hiding somewhere inside after the galleries closed. When dawn arrived and the halls were quiet once more, he emerged from the shadows. Calmly, quietly, he walked to the Salon Carré. He lifted the painting from its frame, carefully, gently, as if handling a fragile secret. Then he carried it down the stairs, into a small service corridor. There he stopped. The door leading out was locked. He tried the handle. It didn't move. So he pulled out a screwdriver, removed the doorknob, and placed it in his pocket. But just as he was about to open the door, he heard footsteps. He froze. The sound came closer, echoing through the stone corridor. A man appeared, another museum worker. Seeing him sitting on the stairs, the worker nodded, thinking he was just one of the cleaners. He unlocked the door and went on his way. And just like that, the thief walked out, through the courtyard, into the cool Paris morning, the Mona Lisa hidden beneath his arm. He crossed the Pont de Carrousel Bridge, and as he ran, he tossed the metal doorknob into the river below, the final piece of his disguise sinking quietly into the Seine. By the time anyone noticed the painting was gone, he was already far away, just another man, blending into the crowd. Days turned into weeks. The Louvre reopened, but nothing felt the same. Visitors came not to admire art, but to stare at the empty space where the Mona Lisa once smiled. Her absence felt like a wound. Police took hundreds of fingerprints, questioned hundreds of people, searched homes, warehouses, and hidden cellars across Paris. They even questioned museum employees, including a quiet Italian painter named Vincenzo Perugia. But they found nothing suspicious. Months became years. The excitement faded, and the whispers began. Perhaps she's been destroyed. Perhaps she's hidden forever. The Mona Lisa became a ghost, a story whispered in cafes, a shadow that haunted every art gallery in France. Some said she would never return, that her smile had vanished forever, but in another country across the border, a letter was being written, and it would soon change everything. Chapter 3. The Return of the Masterpiece. 2 long years had passed since the Mona Lisa vanished. Her empty space at the Louvre had become a symbol of loss, a wound on the wall of art history. Tourists still came to see it, standing in silence before nothing but a blank patch of color. And though time had dulled the shock, the mystery never faded. Then, one cold morning in November 1913, in the city of Florence, Italy, a man named Alfredo Geri, an art dealer, opened a letter. The handwriting was neat, the tone urgent. It was signed simply, Leonard. I am an Italian living in Paris, the letter said. I have the Mona Lisa. I wish to return her to Italy, where she truly belongs, to her home. Jerry stared at the letter for a long time, unsure whether to laugh or tremble. Was this madness or a miracle? He took it to his friend, Giovanni Poggi, the director of the Uffizi Gallery. Together they decided to play along, to find out if the letter was real. They wrote back, inviting Leonard to bring the painting to Milan. On December 10th, a thin young man with a dark mustache appeared at Jerry's office. He carried himself awkwardly, as if hiding something far heavier than his small suitcase. "I am Leonard," he said softly. "My real name is Vincenzo Perugia." Gary and Poggy exchanged a quick glance. Perugia leaned closer and whispered, "The Mona Lisa is in my hotel room." The men followed him to the Hotel Tripoli Italia, a quiet place with narrow hallways and faded wallpaper. Inside room number 20, Perugia walked to a wooden trunk and lifted its lid. Wrapped in simple white cloth lay the face that had vanished from the world. The Mona Lisa, her smile faint and familiar, looked exactly as she had 2 years before. Time had not touched her. Poggy felt his throat tighten. "May I take her to the gallery to confirm?" Perugia nodded proudly. "Of course, but remember, she is Italian. She belongs here." They carried the painting to the Uffizi Gallery, where experts compared her to photographs. The size, the color, the brush strokes, all perfect. There was no doubt. The Mona Lisa had returned. When Perugia came back to his hotel, he found the police waiting. They arrested him quietly. There was no fight, no resistance, only a look of strange satisfaction on his face. At his trial, he spoke with calm conviction. "I did not steal for money," he said. "I did it for Italy. Leonardo da Vinci was Italian, and so is his masterpiece." The court sentenced him to 1 year and 15 days in prison, though later it was reduced to 7 months. To many Italians, he became a kind of hero, the man who brought their lady home, even if only for a moment. But whispers persisted. Had he really acted alone? Some believed Perugia was only a pawn, part of a larger plan, a network of forgers who had sold fake Mona Lisas to wealthy American collectors, each one believing they owned the real thing. No one ever proved it. Perhaps no one ever will. When the Mona Lisa was finally returned to Paris, crowds gathered in the Louvre, their eyes shining with relief and wonder. The world's most famous smile had come home, and behind that mysterious expression, it almost seemed as if she had been watching, amused, all along. Because some mysteries, like her smile, were never meant to be fully understood.